Jairam. He is the Senior Director and holds a portfolio of global DC's services in various sectors. I understand.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you very much for having me. Colm, Shorten, Senior Director with JLL. I look after global strategy and innovation. And I'm 35 years in the data center space. Background is in semiconductors. Quite knowledgeable on GPUs, which we may talk about later today. Worked for 18 years with IBM, 10 years with Fujitsu, and currently about 4 years with JLL. Had the opportunity and the pleasure to work in the Middle East for a couple of years and spending a lot of time and looking forward to a lively discussion with the panel.
Thank you very much for being here. Next onward we have here is Kamel, who is Managing Director for MENA region, Equinix. Welcome. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandeep. Thank you everyone. Thank you, W.Media, for having us here. So my name is Kamel. I'm the Managing Director for Equinix for the Middle East North Africa region. Equinix is one of the largest data center platforms in the globe. We run almost 260 plus data centers in more than 36 countries and 70 metros. They keep on increasing, so that's good. We've been in this region for the past 10 years, and we run the core digital hubs for the region in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, and now Salalah as a key node for the region. It's great that we expand and discuss all emerging technologies, trends affecting data centers and the momentum in the industry. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you. Stuart Manby has been in the UAE, in the Middle East for 3-4 years by now. Previously based in the UAE, so he is very well familiar with the UAE environment, and now based in Saudi Arabia, which is another buzzing, happening market in this region. So Stuart is Chief Sales Officer of Ezditek. Have I pronounced it right?
Ezditek, that's correct.
Yes, so you may like to talk a little more about it.
Yes, good morning everyone. As Sandeep has said, Chief Sales Officer for Ezditek. Ezditek are a design, build and operator based in Saudi Arabia. We have big aspirations in 25 and into 26. We're looking at developing around 300 megawatts across the three main cities. With starting with Jeddah next year, then followed by Riyadh in 26. And we're looking at how we can deliver a large-scale AI factory demand, which will handle the AI demand that we're seeing coming into Saudi Arabia. I wanted to thank the keynote speaker. I think that was a very good keynote address. I think covered a lot of the topics that we'll be talking about this afternoon and this morning. So, yeah, thank you everybody.
Sure. I understand you have hard stop and have some meeting to attend. So, in case we overlap, you may join that conference. So, I will set a little context beyond what is already done by now. Middle East as a region, and DC in particular, always has been a very unique market, very unique business environment. The strengths are so many, the uniquenesses are so many that I will need to read my bullets. It's a great mix of diverse aspects of strength pertaining to different countries, forward-thinking, visionary leadership, like we heard sir you speaking, large geographies, countries, small countries, population of different democracies, blend of multiple nationality workforce residents, high GDP countries, high standard infrastructure overall in the GCC in particular, stable currency, low inflation, educated youth, domestically available youth now, and a great freedom that you typically have, uniquely have only in the Middle East, that you can get talent from anywhere in the world, which is a very unique strength you have here. All over the world in the data center industry we are experiencing, there is a challenge to get enough and good talent. But you are in a region where you have the freedom to get the best from anywhere in the world. So that's, I think, a unique advantage all of you have. With that, I will ask first question to all three of you. Maybe you would like to add your perspective with all of our strengths, abundance of power, tremendous opportunity of renewable energy, well-penetrated infrastructure, and forward-going commitment that all the government have done in terms of digitalization, AI, ML initiatives. We will start from Colm. And Colm, you bring a different perspective because you are a very diversified service provider. You're not a DC operator yourself. So your views will be a lot different than both these gentlemen. How do you look at this?
Yeah, thank you for that. I see that we're at the cusp of a new surge or a new wave in digital technology. So, over the past 25, 30 years, data centers have fundamentally been stable. And there were two kind of big drivers that the Middle East has tapped into. One is the post-pandemic, where we've realized globally that there's a high dependence on digital technologies, whether that's for research and development, communication, and working medical practices. That's one side of it. The second side is that with the advent of AI and ML, we see this inertia, where we see this supercharged within the data center environment. And that has effectively then grown a different focus on data centers as to the art of possible. We've seen that with NVIDIA chips, that they've now effectively enabled machine learning and AI reach people. It's not quite there yet because we don't have the devices. The training models are still fundamentally centered in the US, but it's going to take a couple of years, and we also have to be ready for that. The Middle East is uniquely positioned because the availability of capital, the ability to attract foreign direct investment, and also innovative and creative leadership that we see within the region. And you could add to that also its geographic position. So what we're seeing is that demand is explosive. I'm sure Stuart and Kamel have a better handle on what the exact numbers are, but fundamentally it's going in one direction. The counterbalance to that is that everything is not perfect. There are headwinds. And some of the headwinds are around sustainability. We know that there is a diversification from hydrocarbons to renewable energy. We think that the region is well positioned for that, whether it's in solar, but probably even in hydro or hydrogen, as well as now we're starting to see the shift into SMRs. So what we see though is it's kind of a double-edged positive with regard to AI. Because that has now changed, it's forced us to revisit the stock that we have. When we look at what we've built, it's now got to be adaptable and changed. When we talk to the operators that we have on the panel, they will talk about where they're seeing the transition, particularly in cooling methodologies. And that has a positive side, because it will give you positive numbers in the PUE, but it will give you challenges in the environment that you have to build, and the fact that you have to pivot and be ready for that. And the one thing that we're going to have to get used to is embracing change. So those changes are going to come back into data center design, both from a timing standpoint and getting ready for those technologies.
Sure, great.
Yeah, I mean, over the past 20 years, the industry has seen few inflection points, mainly three inflection points. The first was the advent of cloud, which really changed the perspective of how we do use compute, and this affected the data center in a great way. The second inflection point was the pandemic. And during the pandemic, if the business has not adopted digital, it's out of business. So digital services has really impacted everybody's life, and how we communicate, how we play, how we work, so all impact of life. And companies that do not adopt digital were out of business. So this had a huge impact on the data center industry, and we've seen a big momentum and big growth in data centers globally, and the region has enjoyed that benefit. And really the third and most important inflection point on the data center is the whole advance of generative AI, with the whole amount of data being generated and the whole amount of life-changing technologies that are promising to change everything. So within these inflection points, the industry has moved from a few years back. 4 megawatt data center was like a big data center. Today we're talking 100, 200 megawatts data centers. But with this momentum, which is really great, there is also challenges. And we have seen these challenges happening in many of the European countries in terms of access to power, access to the grid, more congestions on the grid. So the region here is really poised towards a great opportunity where we can really embrace this digital revolution, having and creating more and more digital hubs across various countries. But and we see momentum, So the government agenda is really prioritizing digitization and AI. So that's really key. Cloudification, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud are really top priorities in each and every country, which calls for sovereign AI and sovereign cloud, which brings more and more data centers into perspective. So we've seen a huge momentum, and we've seen from an Equinix point of view strong growth in our business, and I believe this has been shared with many of our partners and competitors. But at the same time, what's been true yesterday is not true tomorrow, because for us to be able to capture that AI workloads, we need much more power. Compute power is increasing by many folds. So we really need to look on what are the source of sustainable and green energy we can provide, and how we can really get that reuse of energy. Definitely solar is one option, but the region, compared to other parts of the world, we don't have kind of the hydro or other or wind, so we need to look at alternative source of power, because for us to start building this huge AI hub where we're talking 100, 200 megawatts, at the longer term it becomes less sustainable. So we need to see and create innovative way how we optimize data centers, how we create more sustainable digital platforms, sustainable data centers, and what other sources of power we can use to power these data centers. There's discussions now around nuclear power, what it can add to the data center industry, and all of the above. So these are questions that are on top of the mind of decision makers. They are on top of mind of us as global data center operators. But at the same time, we see the opportunity in the region, we see the momentum in the region, and we're looking forward to grow that ecosystem.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kamel. So, Stuart, after Colm and Kamel have given us pretty good 360 degrees, you being the chief sales officer, you're more in touch with customers. So I would request you to add a little flavor from that perspective to this. You are experiencing change in this market, very rapid change, as Kamel said. There are aspects like accelerated deployment because of cloud, which was triggered because of COVID, and then there are drives like AI, ML, etc. So I'm sure customer demand, their expectation, their ask is changing. When the market moves up in the life cycle, it's good and bad both for the players. You have more competition, you have more players, which is good for the market, good for customers, you raise the whole play field. But at the same time, it's not as easy possibly selling as it was with less competitors. So how do you see this?
So I think Kamel executed that quite well in terms of how we're dealing with the changes that we're seeing and the challenges we're seeing, certainly within what our customers are expecting from us. I joined Ezditek earlier this year, where we're just finalising our design to deploy first data centers within Saudi Arabia, and that's traditional airport. But now we're challenged with the fact to deliver 138 to 150 kilowatts a rack. So my design teams are actively working to deliver those types of requirements for our customers late 25 into 26. And how do we adapt to those challenges continually? And we're having to evolve. So if we look at sustainability, yes, of course, it's at the top of the agenda for us to deliver more sustainable data centers. But in essence, the demand that we're seeing is greater than we can start to deliver across the region at this moment in time. So the challenges are vast for us, and trying to keep up with how we deliver on those challenges is becoming a daily conversation within the teams, not just within Ezditek, but with our customers as well. So yeah, it's difficult, I think, but we have to evolve very quickly. And we have to evolve to ensure that we can deliver based on the innovation that we're seeing from our customers globally. And I think, overall, we're working with those challenges, but I think it's going to take a lot more time than people think to deliver these data centers at scale because of the investment that's required.
Right. So what you delivered possibly in 18 months last year, the customer wants in 14 months and then 12 months. So it's becoming an impatient market on one side. Second is when the rate of change is so fast, your experience perishes very quickly. You need to relearn all the time. So how are you doing that balance of using your experience, using your knowledge, but not carrying that as a baggage where it is getting obsolete?
So Kamel, once again, you alluded to 4 megawatt data centers. We're being asked to deploy 20, 30 megawatts at a time. And that's at large scale, and these are for one customer. Or 50 megawatts across 2 customers. We're just having to challenge our partner network and our own teams to take a step back and to just take a view that says we have to deliver 50 megawatts. It's gone from 500 kilowatts 15 years ago to 50 megawatts 15 years later. So the challenges are the same, the scale has just got larger.
So, Colm, coming back to you, because you have a little different perspective, you can step back and see this as a third person to an extent because you are not in line, you are a service provider. On one side, we are saying the market is becoming impatient, the timelines are getting challenged, and fundamentally commercial wise, you squeeze time, your cost goes up. But here the expectation is cost has to go up, it has to become faster. The world also is having a lot of VUCA kind of thing, there are war zones, there are shipping issues. So the cost on one side seems to be difficult to contain. The densities are going up, the core and shell weight per square meter is going up. So how do you see balancing that? What is your advice for operators? Are there any ways, tools that you are developing as a service provider where they can anticipate and leverage some knowledge from your side?
Yeah, I think it kind of taps on to what the 2 gentlemen were saying. First thing is you can't do this alone. We need collaboration, we need to build up this supply chain. So as we're going through this transition, the operator has to stay ahead of the curve. So through partnerships with either the hyperscale or with some of the infrastructure or private equity that's getting injected into the industry, you have to then invest and understand where your landing zone is. So from a technical standpoint, the way we view data center design and the roadmap, you start with the chip, the rack, and then the room. So when we talk about the chip, and Stuart and Kamel talk about AI, so we all know about NVIDIA, whether it's Grace or Hopper, the H100 or the GB200. You have to design your environment for that. So to be ahead of the curve, you have to work with your supply chain. Quality is a must. It's a given. The cost pressures that are coming into it is inflation because of the demand. But you do that, you satisfy that supply chain primarily through relationships and collaboration with your customers. Because overall, we can achieve and succeed by fundamentally working together.
Sure.
Now, there will be, I would see if we call it like an age model, academia, you're E for enterprise. We're inviting in, you know, the cloud providers. The keynote speaker talked a little bit about, we have Oracle, Microsoft, and a number of people, Google, building cloud in the area. That brings in the critical mass, and it brings in the cluster of people that work and build those ecosystems. So by leveraging that, and then by the investment, the government then have to incentivize people to come in. And that incentive is not just primarily capital. It may be regulation, which was touched on. It may be putting fiber in the ground. But the one thing that we do know, and the keynote speaker touched on it, is that the global data sphere is only going to be one way. And there's going to be a paradigm shift once these AI technologies arrive at the data center. And right now we haven't. So when we think of AI, we're thinking of the way we break it down, we're advising our clients, is that AI from a training facility is a huge 200 megawatt along the lines of what Stuart was speaking about. That hasn't arrived. They're fundamentally in the US, but eventually those workloads will shift. And whether you shift in training or shift in inference, which is where we use those technologies, it's still going to result in a huge ramp up in demand, both at the density level and at the overall storage level. So these, you know, like Stuart saying, 4 megawatts used to be a big DC. I remember when 2 megawatts was a big DC. Probably means I'm older again. But basically what I'm saying is that they will become non-vision. And you have to react to that, and you have to bring in these advanced technologies. And it's almost like some of the growth countries that we have are moving from 2G to 5G. That you see that supercharged, that means you have to be ahead of the curve. Inflation pressure is going to be difficult because the supply chain. I mean, maybe Equinix or Stuart can tell us if we order, you know, 50 gen sets or 100 gen sets, what's the lead time? And we're ordering technologies then that we haven't tested, we haven't scaled for, liquid to chip, even though it's probably 20 years old, IBM used it back in the day. But those technologies, the supply chain for that is not there. So what we're encouraging people is to work together, build those pipelines now, so that when you come to that in the 25, 26 region, we're available.
Sure, great. Thank you. Great insight. So, Kamel, what would be your reflection to what Colm said from an operator's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the whole perspective is changed with the emerging technologies. You know? So, from an AI point of view, it's really huge pressure on demand. So, if you look at overall occupancy rate of data centers globally, it's more than like 96-97%. So we need more capacity. This cannot be more true for this region, because this region, in terms of kilowatt per capita, is extremely low compared to EMEA, Asia-Pac, and in the US. And now with all the government priorities and government agendas, we believe that this is going to increase, and we need more and more capacity. Now, more capacity means more supply chain, means more talent, means more material. So, as a global company, we are working across our supply chain to make sure that we are satisfying the demand. But as a global company, also we have a completely global perspective on what's happening. So from an AI point of view, we see a huge emergence, and we are working to meet that demand. So we just released in the press last week that we are going to build a 1.5 gigawatt AI campus in the US. That's a $15 billion investment that we're putting in the US to cater for all those training modules. But these training modules will require inference, and that inference is going to live in the edge. So this is why we are investing in various metros within the Middle East and outside the Middle East to make sure that we are capturing that inference workloads. At the same time, we are also bringing or trying to democratize AI through our partnership with NVIDIA, where we are putting through key metros kind of NVIDIA as a service. So that's a partnership between NVIDIA and Equinix. So we're doing a lot of that to make sure that AI is accessible to more and more broader personas and broader enterprises, because as you know, access to these GPUs is very, very, very difficult. So we're trying to make sure that we're democratizing access. Now, with all that, what's happening, there's new emergence of technologies. I think Colm has touched on cooling. Well, 2-3 years back, 5 kilowatt rack was considered dense.
Yeah.
Last year, something like 10 kilowatt was dense. Today, we're talking 40, 50 kilowatt, and people are talking in a couple of years' time 300 kilowatt racks. So this will impose a completely new philosophy in designing data centers. In terms of cooling, in terms of optimization, in terms of using technologies to make sure that data centers are scalable and sustainable. Now, what we are doing today in Dubai is we're using a hybrid cooling within our existing data centers. So we're refurbishing some of our data centers to cater for both air cool and liquid cool, so we can cater to those new workloads. But it's a journey. It's a journey. It requires cooperation between vendors, operators, supply chain to cater for that demand. It cannot be done by one vendor. It's an ecosystem of suppliers, operators, government to provide the right regulations, telco operators to provide the right connectivity, so that the whole ecosystem play is what's going to make the region emerging as a regional and maybe a global digital hub for those emerging technologies, be it AI, cloud, and the others.
All right, great. Stuart, one thing I would like to add for you to consider while you answer this. We have various streams from which the growth is coming. We have OTTs, tens of them: drone, OTT, robotics, education, name it and not. So, what do you think? Where exactly? Which are the top 3 drivers, or is it like growth is going to come from all of them? That's one. Second is, there is a great startup environment here. Government is encouraging startups. So you have small companies, you have SMEs, you have lots, small enterprise, large, and hyperscalers. So, how do you see the matrix of your customer mix? Will the growth come from all of them? How do you balance your design and sales strategy? Because every tier of these customer segments will have different requirements and requirement profiles. So how do you balance that?
So I'm going to make reference to Saudi Arabia for this question, and how I answer it is going to be simply based on the fact that you can't just leapfrog 15 years from co-location into these technologies. There's a huge learning curve for us and also our customers. So I'm still seeing in Saudi Arabia, especially in the capital where we'll be building, a huge demand just for simple co-location. And we can't ignore the fact that our bread and butter has come from co-location. Our co-location clients are now going from, in Saudi, and I use Saudi as an example again, they're still deploying 3 kilowatt racks. There's huge market in Saudi Arabia for co-location. It's over 250 megawatts. And we're seeing those customers now wanting to deliver 7 kilowatts a rack. Okay, so let's not forget about where we've come from in terms of our customer base, certainly from what I'm seeing at the moment. And then we go beyond that. We then look at cloud. We look at what the hyperscalers are asking us to do. They're going from 10 kilowatts to 15 to 20 up to 30, 40 kilowatts a rack. So I still see a huge demand from co-location in Saudi Arabia from those types of customers. And we've already discussed at length AI, so I don't really need to go into where we think that's coming from. It's coming from large language models that customers are wanting now to train their data to get the outcomes that they're expecting. But for me, still, it's about keeping our feet firmly on the ground and delivering co-location to those customers that we still see a huge demand for. And as we've alluded to, the 200 to 300 megawatt facilities, these AI factories, yeah, we're looking at those as well. But as I've said, we're probably 18 months off because the chips won't be coming into Saudi Arabia until middle of 25, end of 2026. So, yeah, I think for us, it's making sure that we deliver on what our customer wants first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add to that, Stuart. I think you're absolutely right. We have a tendency to shift the focus to something that's shiny, new, exciting, like AI. But the fundamental basics, when we think of data center, we talk a lot about the center, which is the infrastructure, the power, the cooling, and the network. But basically, this is a house for housing your digital infrastructure. So one thing that I would say is that the fundamentals still hold. So when people build data centers, we're looking at the data that's housed there. And whether that's PaaS, SaaS INAS, whether it's platform, infrastructure, software as a service, that's what's providing value to the user group. And that's why we see benefits from the cloud guys coming in, because they're bringing in those applications. They're bringing in that fundamental capability and digital building blocks that help the user and the citizens of that area and the business drive value. Because this stuff isn't cheap, and it's only if you see value or if it's fixing the problem that they will buy and embrace these technologies. So that building block is the fundamental cornerstone of growing the market and for growing GDP and for improving the lives of our people. Whether that's in medical research, whether it's in government functionality, whether it's in young academic people studying, or even streaming movies, or the new 40 million people that we're going to have on the internet in the next few years. That's reaching out to those masses, whether that's from a hub and spoke or it's at the edge. It's the use of that digital data, the application, and innovative ways that we're finding that's going to provide value. And not every one of that or all of that will be AI and this stuff, but that will come. But the basic fundamentals of a digitized economy, everything that we touch now has a digital fingerprint. And the cloud doesn't live up there, it is in these data centers. So I see, to take on Stuart's point, the bread and butter, the basics are within the cloud space of the cloud.
If you look at Saudi again, and I'll make reference to Saudi Arabia, because that's where I'm based typically, they're just getting used to the power pass-through model. So to jump from a simple co-location to AI as being the most prevalent technology that's going to be used within the region is, I think, somewhat naive for all of us to think, because we still have to cater for those customers that are on-prem. There's a huge amount of on-prem within Riyadh, certainly within Jeddah and Dammam as well, which we're taking into co-location. And there's a huge retail market in that region as well. So I think there's going to be some fundamental changes happening to capture that demand, but I think that's where we need to start, and we need to start on the basics.
I would definitely agree is that the core of the market today is what we call digital ecosystems, which is mainly enterprises co-locating and interconnecting to build that digital economy and interconnect with each other. So enterprises are core, and the adoption of enterprises of digital and into digital transformation is core to enable and power the digital economy. Cloudification, whether it's cloud, sovereign cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, is key. And all the hyperscalers building cloud zones in various regions to cater for sovereign clouds is a key enabler for the demand. And of course, the emergence of AI that's coming, as the gentleman said, we still have not seen the large workloads of AI coming into the region. This is when or if, but definitely there's going to be an emergence of inference-based AI moving into the edge, because all these massive training modules or LLM will need to be hosted in data centers globally, but the inference needs to move to the edge, and we started seeing some application of that in various countries. So yeah, I do believe the core is going to be the digital enterprise, digital transformation of the various governments and cloudification.
Actually, do we have time for one more question? Do we have time for one more question? Correct? We do. So,
one more.
one more. So, when we talk about growth of this market, it's unique and quite an unprecedented speed acceleration that we have seen. So, this is a growth in hurry. When that happens, you need to have a very synchronous kind of co-functioning of all actors that you need, which means consultants, service providers, approval, government policies, everything has to move. And when we talk about, ultimately everything is a supply chain. And when we talk about supply chain, most often all goes to only physical goods, where right from your funding decisions, policies, everything has to flow, right? Talent. So how do you see this market moving as required in that life cycle? Do you see any blind spots, potential bottlenecks? Any word of advice or anticipation from your side for the market?
It's a good question. When we talk about supply chain, the supply chain is not just in the physical attributes or hardware, the mechanical and electrical that you see in the data center. When we talk about the supply chain, it's in the context, as Kamel said, about the ecosystem. So, when we look at what we call the asset life cycle, it starts fundamentally around the funding, the concept, the idea. And some of those new entrants into the market may not have data center experience, but they have capital to apply. So you have to look at the complete system, the end-to-end, and you need guidance and advice to help you on that journey. And we have seen new capital, people that had experience in building stuff, building offices or residential or industrial, but didn't have the data center ground. And I would encourage people to work with subject matter experts. I'm not an advocate for Equinix, but these guys know what they're doing, and they're world experts, and they can help people on that journey. So when you think about initializing, applying capital, when you think about site selection and why be here and why not there, the chase for power, what are you actually building, what does the architecture look like, whether it's in connectivity, cross-connects, or availability zones, fault domains. You need subject matter experts to help you with that. And then the other group of people then about what is the product that you're building. Do you have the people that are able to build in that design, adaptability and flexibility that you don't have to build? Because now you're being asked to do the impossible. You're being asked to produce the 5 kilowatt rack, 30 kilowatt rack, and the 150 kilowatt rack. And that's pretty tricky. So you need to build that flexibility and adaptability. You've got to be agile in your design. And then you have to manage your operating costs. So in that sense, it's having somebody, this is the plug for JLL, that have the complete understanding of the asset life cycle. And how we get that by the combination of growing our talent, growth by acquisition, joint up thinking, cohesive plan with connected skills in a global economy. And that's the only way to do it. Other than that, there's going to be a difficult. And it will be a competitive business. And at the back end of it, there will be a challenge. Stuart talked about the cost per kilowatt. At the end of the day, we talk about PUE, power utilization, CUE, carbon footprint. I think the most important one is MUE. And that's money utilization effectiveness, because at the end of the day, this is a business.
Very well. So I think we're done with our time. It was up. Okay. If you have some. It has been an absolutely free-flowing knowledge. Thank you. Over to Shorten.
Thank you very much for the discussion, very insightful, thanks. So many countries categorized cloud and data centers as strategic and critical assets, as you know. You've mentioned the role of the digital technologies as maybe enabler for you to be more efficient as well, also more sustainable. What caught my attention is really how you also presented the ecosystem. Can you give us more insights and examples? How do you see, for example, a better collaboration either with the companies downstreams or upstreams of the data centers in be more, let's say, efficient, be more sustainable, or forecast better the demand? Thank you.
So, I think to build an ecosystem, you need all parties involved. I think in this region we're really privileged because we have forward-looking governments who are looking to adopt digital priority. I mean, in the UAE we have a Minister of AI from 7 years, so that's not new. So we're really privileged, we're really privileged to have more data center friendly governments in all of the GCC governments. So it starts all with the regulations to make sure that the regulations are friendly, getting more and more adoption of digital. So that's one. The second thing is we have a very strong digital savvy population that requires more and more and more digital services. So it makes our job, all of us, easier because people want to adopt digital services. Then it's the cooperation between all of us. So you have two kinds of ecosystem. You have the industry ecosystem between data center providers, suppliers, and Colm has really touched base on that whole value chain and how we can cooperate to build better, bigger, cheaper, more optimized, more interconnected. But on top of that, I would add also the connectivity, which is key, because no ecosystem can go through without connectivity. So this adds another perspective of the telecom players that really need to be part of that play. So if always, and of course, we talk about the industrial ecosystem, whether it's a finance ecosystem, or a cloud ecosystem, or a gaming ecosystem, or a content delivery ecosystem. So all of these need to work together to provide the end user experience. But at the end of the day, this region is very privileged because we have forward-looking governments who see the value of digital infrastructure, who see the value of investments in digital infrastructure. I mean, compared to some countries in Europe where there is moratorium on data centers, we're really enjoying a great momentum. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful, good discussion. My point question is that in the UAE, we are struggling for developing some kind of sustainable solution for the data centers, and we are also working on the renewable energy as well. So my point is that, do you have any kind of the information that for the energy source, for the energy, why we are not using the hydrogen as the energy source for the data centers as well? And because we are developing the smart cities concept as well, and what think that in that business model for the smart cities, what is the role for the data center as an existing physical data centers, or is it, can we, if we just go for the virtual data centers in that kind of scenario, data center as a service, so what do you think in that perspective there?
Not quite sure what the question is.
Question is that can we go for the future data centers on hydrogen energy as a source of power? My question is because we have already developed the hydrogen for the the autonomous vehicles for the.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that.
And second point, can we go instead of the physical data centers and we connect with the virtual data centers?
Well, the first thing with regard to hydrogen,
definitely hydrogen has a role to play. I mean, it's quite widely used in Southeast Asia. I know in Japan they've made great advances in it. For sure, you know, when we touched on the demand for power, and Kamel mentioned even moratoriums they can see in Europe, we have to learn by the mature markets where they have challenges. The grid infrastructure is not able to keep up. The grid infrastructure in the Middle East may be slightly better in the sense that they have the availability of power, and that power may come from fossil fuels or it's not overly clean. So the journey on to renewable energy is critical. When we build digital infrastructure, we have to do it in a responsible way, that we have to build it today without damaging or interfering with the future. So when we look at ESG, the S is sociable, and we have to be socially responsible. The environmental side is there is a direction of travel. We are probably going to end up with SMRs or nuclear energy because it's clean and green. We see it at a slightly higher level in the likes of France, where the grid is fundamentally green. We haven't embraced those technologies, although fission and fusion, there's a lot of advancements. We see the big players going in that space. So the transformation from renewable energy, from oil, gas, hydro, pumped hydro, solar, wind, it's going to be a blend and a mix. But with regard to virtual versus physical data centers, fundamentally, the virtual is there, but the fundamental building blocks are semiconductor devices, zeros and ones, whether you want to call it digital, binary, quantum computing. It's all going to require hardware. At the moment, we don't have technologies beyond that will be on semiconductors, transmitting packets of data and workload from A to B, within an availability zone, within a network. That's fundamentally going to be there. How we do that, whether we use light and we speed up that light and use hollow core fiber, we definitely can. And to go back to this gentleman's question, we have to optimize that. And we can use AI technologies for that. AI comes in GIS